I'll just elaborate a little bit on mobilisation and how, if we bring in the other hand, we can create other kinds of mobilisation effects. So, coming back to basic principles, if we're going to compress tissue, we always need to compress it into something denser, which is normally the underlying bony structure. But there are situations where what we do, we compress it against another part of our hand or another part of our body. When we mobilise, when we're creating a stretch in the tissue along its plane, we always need to be stretching out of a fixed or less mobile point, which will normally be the attachment point of the muscle. But we can use the other hand to create fixed points to mobilise from. So if, for example, I'm mobilising the tissue down in this direction, I can use the other hand to create a fixed point there. With a little bit of compression of that hand creates a fixed point. And now the stretch of the mobilisation happens between the two hands. So you get a much stronger mobilisation in a smaller area of fascia. If I do this, stretching along this line, I'm engaging the whole sheet in a very broad kind of way. And a lot of the effect and the force will go into the attachment points of the muscles and affect them there. If I bring in the other hand as a fixed point, I now create a very strong stretch just in that little bit of tissue. And all the other same things can apply, that I engage the depth barrier, find a line of resistance, and then I can wait out the tension, or I can oscillate. The other thing I can do, when I've found an area that I want to put a myofascial release in, I can not simply create a fixed point there, I can use the other hand to create another vector of movement, putting, if you like, a twist into the tissue. So that increases the strength of the challenge and will make for an even more powerful release. And very often, if you're trying to release an area and it just doesn't want to give, using the other hand to create a twist. So I go depth barrier, find the line of resistance, put a twist in, lean into the line of resistance. That will often get through a barrier that won't otherwise want to shift. And one thing that often tends to happen in this is that at the moment my left hand is the one that's doing the stretching, my right hand is the anchoring and twisting point. I get a little bit of a release there. Now I'm going to make the right hand into the stretching one and the left one into the fixed point, the twisting. And I can actually work from hand to hand. So that's just a few extra little things that you can do when you bring both hands in. You can also create it's a sort of compression, but a compression in this plane with one hand at a fixed point, and then use the other hand to mobilise the tissue towards this. Then all this, it's not quite like skin lifting, but all this tissue is now being lifted up, and we've disengaged any tension at all in that area. So if I from there then go back into an opening and a lengthening, we may find then we get a much better release. So again, I've been kind of working away at this, I've been leaning in for 15 minutes and the clock's ticking and there's been no release. So let's do the opposite strategy, disengage. So I disengage between my two hands. Hold that disengagement for a little while. And then go back, and magically I find there's more space and length in the tissue. That's a nice little technique you can employ as well. So with your partner, and stick with the same partner just for this exercise, what I want you to do is just spend a few minutes setting up releases using both hands in that kind of way. You also have the possibility of working in this kind of way. When they do this certainly this is commonly done in shiatsu, this particular fascial release. And the way they do it is that both hands are stretching. The way I do it, one hand is a fixed point, the other hand is a stretch. And I might swap from one hand to the other, but all the time I've always got one stabilizing hand and one stretching hand very clearly. So that's just another one you can do. So have an explore of that for a few minutes.